Hello. Welcome to the Vikings Report, your Minnesota Vikings news channel. Don't waste time. Start by subscribing and leaving that like. Let's go to today's news. Let's go. Vikings may be about to avoid a big mistake in free agency. With the offseason approaching, the Minnesota Vikings need to strengthen their offensive line. And one of the names that has been gaining traction is Kansas City Chiefs guard Trey Smith. At just 24 years old and coming from one of the most dominant teams in the NFL, he seemed like an interesting option to protect the Vikings' next quarterback. But is that still a good idea? After the playoffs, the answer may have changed, and not for the better. Trey Smith. From promise to concern? Before the postseason, many saw Smith as a solution to the Vikings' problems on the interior offensive line. But the numbers from his last few games raise a huge red flag. In the Super Bowl against the Philadelphia Eagles, he had one of the worst performances of the Chiefs' offensive line. According to PFF, Pro Football Focus, his pass blocking grade was just 49.2 out of 100, after allowing 3 pressures and 1 sack. And it wasn't just in the Super Bowl that he struggled. Throughout the 2024 postseason, Smith accumulated a pass blocking grade of 40.8, ranking among the 6 worst guards in the league in the playoffs. And now comes the big question. Should the Vikings pay a fortune for a player who struggles precisely in the most important moments? Is the price fair? Spotrac.com currently projects that Smith could receive a contract in the range of $19.7 million per year. If that figure is confirmed, he would become the 5th highest paid guard in the NFL. Paying that price for a player who hasn't performed consistently against elite teams is risky, to say the least. And the numbers show exactly that. Against teams that did not make the playoffs in 2024, average of 72.1 in pass blocking, PFF. Against teams that made the playoffs, average of 57.6, an alarming drop. That means when the competition gets tougher, his performance drops. And the Vikings don't just need an upgrade at OL, they need a guy who can hold his own against the league's best defenders without compromising the offense. What's the best path for the Vikings? The Vikings can still evaluate Trey Smith and even talk about a contract. But if the price goes up and a bidding war starts, don't be surprised if Minnesota simply walks away from the deal. And honestly, that might be the best move. There are other options on the market that could offer more security for a similar or even lower price. Players like Robert Hunt, Miami Dolphins, and Kevin Zeitler, Baltimore Ravens, have experience and a more reliable track record. Plus, this year's draft has some promising talent at the position. The main question is it worth paying a lot for a player who struggles against strong teams? Now I want to hear from you, fans. Would you still go for Trey Smith, or do you think the Vikings should look elsewhere? Leave it in the comments and let's debate. Now, another piece of news that is driving Minnesota Vikings fans crazy. Minnesota Vikings linked to Aaron Rodgers as a possible quarterback option. The Minnesota Vikings enter another offseason with uncertainty at the quarterback position. After Kirk Cousins left for the Atlanta Falcons, the team brought in Sam Darnold in free agency and selected J.J. McCarthy in the 2024 draft to fill that void. Now, with Darnold entering free agency again and McCarthy still a rookie, there are expectations that the Vikings will look for a veteran quarterback to act as a temporary starter or mentor for the young player. Among the options available on the market, names like Joe Flacco, Andy Dalton, Jacoby Brissett, and Jameis Winston are already being considered. In addition, Daniel Jones, who spent the last few months recovering in Minnesota and has a connection with coach Kevin O'Connell, could also be a viable alternative. However, a new possibility has emerged: Aaron Rodgers. Could Rodgers be a target for the Vikings? During Super Bowl weekend, reports surfaced that the New York Jets may be considering moving on from the veteran quarterback, despite him still being under contract. According to ESPN's Adam Schefter, Rodgers has not made a final decision on his future, but there is a good chance he will continue to play in the NFL. Speaking on the Pat McAfee show, Schefter said, "My guess is he'll end up playing. He'll want to stay and find a team that really wants him." Schefter also directly mentioned the Vikings as a team that could be looking to land a quarterback in free agency if they don't re-sign Darnold or Jones. Can Rodgers still perform at a high level? Rodgers, who turned 41 in December, has built one of the most successful careers in the NFL. The quarterback has almost 63,000 yards, 503 touchdowns, and only 116 interceptions, in addition to having won 2 consecutive MVP awards in 2020 and 2021. However, his last seasons indicate a possible decline in performance. In 2022, his last season with the Packers, his offensive production decreased, and Green Bay's offense began to prioritize the ground game. In 2023, he suffered a ruptured Achilles tendon early in the season with the Jets, which sidelined him for most of the year. In advanced statistics, Rodgers ranked 22nd in the EPA/play metric, close to Bryce Young and Daniel Jones. This raises questions about his true ability to perform at a high level and whether he can still be a difference maker for a team looking for stability at the quarterback position. Could the Vikings consider Rodgers? While the Vikings need a veteran quarterback for next season, there are several factors to consider before considering a move for Rodgers. His age, high cost, and the potential for him to be a dominant presence in the locker room could all be obstacles for a team looking to renew at the position. Additionally, Minnesota could take a safer route by going with a lower-cost veteran or giving J.J. McCarthy time to develop. With free agency set to officially open on March 10th, the Vikings must evaluate all options before making a decision on their next quarterback.